It's one thing to lose. And coaches say this all the time. I shouldn't be talking about effort. I shouldn't have to coach effort. I shouldn't have to teach effort. You bring the effort. I'll bring the knowledge. We'll put it together. We'll go compete and see how it goes. But it blows my mind watching Philly last night. And I know it didn't go great early. I know the shots weren't falling, but there was no sense of urgency. There was nobody saying, you know what? We got to fix this. That's what worries me about Philly. Do they have a leader? Talk about Grant Williams in the Celtics all the time. See the best player on the team? No. Pretty good player, getting better, especially on defense. But I look at the Sixers. Who's that guy? Who's that voice? Who's that overarching person to say, you know what? We got to get it together. We need to figure it out. Didn't see it from James. Maxey, can't put that on you. You're too young. You're too young. Thibault, you're not dog enough to do it. Joel, to me, hasn't proven to be a big-time verbal leader yet in the right way either. Cone, there's no excuse for it in my mind.
I prompted you guys yesterday with the statement that the 76ers have won their final game of the season already. You said no, because this series is going to go 7 and then they'll get beat. And then you said the Heat have already won their final game of the season.
I did say that.
Well, they performed well last night. So what do you think about this series now?
Well, I think the Sixers, after that performance, I mean, what else would I think about it? I know the Heat wouldn't. One thing I haven't really questioned if you watch the Heat is effort. Sometimes it's the ball's not going in. And that's acceptable. It's basketball. It's sports. But the way how do you not come out energetic? It looked like the people watching the game care more about it than the people playing the game. Mm-hmm. And why would I expect anything else from Jay? Why would I sit here? I give you my faith. You know what? I believe in you guys. After the performance you put on in Philly, I believe in you guys. It looked like y'all are the better team. Joel Embiid looked like head and shoulders better than anybody on that court. The Jimmy Butler comes out and is just doing Jimmy Butler things. So I think about it right now. Why wouldn't I take the Heat? Is it that much of a separation from home in the way someone plays? Because that separation was giant. After the first 5 minutes of that game, that ball game was over.
Well, here's the problem I have. They're going to go back to Philly to play Game 6, and Philly's going to win.
You think
they'll play hard? They'll play good. Then we'll come back here and say, wow, I guess the Sixers somehow figured it out. But therein lies the problem. You'll never win a championship if your effort level and consistency is like a Geiger counter. It's just whatever. You have to be able to bring it every night. Because again, the shots aren't going to be falling every night. You may have to win a game 101-98. You may have to win a game 97-94. You're not going to win every game 115-105 or 115-95. You've got to be able to bring it on offense, defense, and special teams. Yes, I'm talking about basketball every night to be able to survive these series.
Yeah.
Philly will go back home and win. Then they'll go to Miami and probably lose by double.
Well, last night would have made a little more sense if they had home field advantage or home court advantage in this series, right? Like, I still think play as hard as you can every single game and keep a playoff game closer than that. But if you knew that Game 7 was at your place, that makes a little bit more sense. But you're either going to have to win Game 5 on the road or Game 7, and you have to win Game 6.
You've got to now win Game 6 at home and go and try and win a Game 7.
Yes, but I'm talking about before last night.
Before last night.
You're either going to have to win Game 5 or 7 and win Game 6. And
you'd much rather play them in Game 5 at home because that place is going to be nuts during Game 7.
So I don't understand it. You said yesterday that the Heat just don't have a low post answer for what Joel Embiid can do. So after watching this game, did they do enough to convince you otherwise, or is this just a situation where Embiid he's banged up?
Yeah, okay. And he did look somewhat banged up.
He's hurt. He got hit in the face again last night.
Then that makes me say it better not be some 40-point performance in Philly. Then you're not that hurt, buddy.
Yeah.
Then if it's that quick of a turnaround, you're not that hurt. But you look at the Sixers team, and I kind of go back to what you said. There's not a clear voice on this team. Now, they don't have a P.J. Tucker, or an Al Horford, veteran guy on the team that really leads that team. I mean,
that's a good point.
I mean, you have James Harden, who's one of those guys who's not going to be a vocal leader. I think James Harden's about as toxic as any player in the NBA.
Toxic?
For sure.
Toxic, though.
For sure, yeah.
I just think he's not a strong person. He's not a leader. There's a difference.
I think he's a strong personality, but in a quiet way.
No. I think that James Harden doesn't want to be a leader. I don't think that's James Harden's personality. Good, bad, or indifferent. And just because you don't want to be a leader doesn't mean you're toxic.
I agree.
I think there's a big difference between calling somebody toxic and just
go back to the Nets days. Go back to the Houston days. Like there's always a problem with James Harden with somebody on the team.
Unless your philosophy is a me guy, I think a case could be made for sure that he's a me guy. If your philosophy is by definition that makes you toxic, then fair enough. But I think those are two different things.
I think they're two different things. I think people want James Harden to be something that he's just not.
Okay.
I think they want him to be the vocal leader, the alpha. That's not him.
I just want him to play better.
Again, I'm not going to get mad at a guy. People are bashing the guy for having 24, 16, and 8. Like, that's not a bad. You're expecting him to put up the numbers that Joel Embiid and these. That's not him. When he was with the Thunder, remember, it was him. Wasn't it him, Durant, and Westbrook were all on the same team? Remember that? And he was the sixth man coming off the bench. Then you go to Houston and go through that experiment. Then you go to the Nets, where he is a star, but he's not the superstar that Kevin Durant and Kyrie are, and there's problems there. I think people want him to be something that he's not. You can bash him for that. That's fine. If you're saying, all right, well, his talent doesn't match his personality, it needs to be a more mega, more alpha, more dominant personality. I don't think that's who James Harden is. You go back and look at him at Arizona State. I don't think that's who he was at Arizona State. And if you're relying on James Harden to be a leader at this point in his career, all of what you've seen with all of that in the past, then I think you're making a bad bet. Joel Embiid needs to be that team's leader. The one who I think may end up doing it, as crazy as it sounds, is the youngest one. Is Maxey. Maxey's the only one that I'm watching. I'm like, this guy, and he didn't shoot good last night. He is playing his guts out. I can watch him and tell that he is playing his guts out, and it means something to him. It means a lot to him.
When you're on that first contract.
And again, I'll say it's overwhelming, and you hear people say, oh, well, that you shouldn't thrust him. Look, leaders got to step up. Don't matter if it's the youngest. It don't matter if it's the oldest. We go into battle and war, and we're in a platoon, and the youngest guy is the leader, and he's doing good. Do your thing, young blood. Do your thing.
James Harden's getting paid enough to where he has to do more. He's got to do more. I'm sorry, you got to do more. It's people who say, well, James Harden doesn't need to score. He just needs to do this and do this.
Never said that.
James Harden needs to score. James Harden's at his best is when he is scoring. James Harden can facilitate in his sleep. But it gets to a point where in an NBA game, whether it's home or road, man, you got to put the ball in the basket.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Would you rather James Harden, with the healthy Joel Embiid, be playing good and facilitating and taking good shots and drawing fouls, as opposed to saying, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go shoot it 40 times. I may score 35 points, but I'm going to shoot 30% and waste a ton of
if James Harden's shooting good shots and getting fouled, he's scoring a good amount of points.
Okay, but so what I'm saying is, if you're going to say, all right, you just need to go score more, that's a very easy thing to say, is what I'm saying. How you score is just as important. I watched Drew Holiday score a lot of points, but also for the Bucks, I also watched Drew Holiday go through 3 to 5 minute stretches where he's the only one that's shooting, and they fall to an 8-0 run or down to a 10-0 run.
James Harden's one of the best players still at creating his own space and creating his own shot. I mean, he invented the step back.
Yeah, well, I thought you said, and maybe I'm mistaken, I thought you said that James Harden just doesn't look like his old self, like the game's past.
Well, there's flashes of it, and I believe if there's flashes, then you can get on a consistent basis where you are doing better, scoring the basket.
And he should play better. But again, understand that what our argument was talking about leadership. I'm talking about James Harden from a leadership standpoint. Like, he led by his play the other night when he dropped over 30, right? And I agree with you. He should score more. But I would much rather have James Harden playing well all around, playing good defensively, crashing the glass, facilitating, taking good shots, and drawing fouls, as opposed to saying, you know what? I'm going to score 30 points regardless. I may shoot it 45 times. I may shoot 25%, but I'm going to score 30 points, because that's how you get drug, in my opinion.
Well, when it's not on clicking on all angles like it was for the Heat game yesterday, I was watching the game waiting on someone to take control of the game. And no one was playing. Joel wasn't taking control of the game.
That's the problem.
Maxey wasn't taking control of the game.
That's the problem.
Sooner or later, if you're getting paid $269 million for a 5-year contract or whatever it is, you got to answer the call sometimes. You can't just disappear into the fold and just go away. You're getting paid this money until you answer that call. If you have to be the guy to go score, know when the time is the time. And James Harden, again and again, when big moments come, he folds.
He had to do it before from the guard position standpoint, because he had Chris Paul in Houston.
Yeah.
Right? And even though they only played 16 games together in Brooklyn, Kyrie could do that from a guard perspective, or even KD could bring the ball up the court and take over on a possession when they really needed it. And then if James Harden's open and they kick it out to him and he hits a big shot, congratulations. But he didn't have to be the person in the backcourt taking control of a game late.
It's a lot different riding the bus and then driving the bus.
Sure.
That's very true.
Hey everybody, if you like what you're hearing, go ahead and ring that bell. We're excited to be here. It's Crain and Company live 2 to 3 Central daily. Ring that bell. I want to hear it from coast to coast.